The SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Shady Rays. Go to shadyrays.com and use code SGPN for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. All right. And welcome in, everybody, to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. Sorry, forgot how to start the cam for a second. Here we go.
Come on out. Come on out.
I was like, how do I do this again? See, that's what happens when you try to start me off with some new intro music and things like that. It always takes me one try to get it going here. But I am very happy to be joined by Justin today. Yeah, he's laughing at me right now. I'm a space case, but yes, Justin is my usual. I might as well call him my co-host now, since I always try to find a guest, but Justin's always my man in action. Always here for me on my Sunday and Monday night podcasts when no one else
reliable.
responds. So I'm happy to have you, man. How you doing today?
Doing good. Had a nice weekend. Celebrating Easter. Had family in town. Filled up on some good food.
Yep, I was bartending yesterday, and the shift was going long, of course, and instead of stocking up on the wonderful food that they were giving out to everybody, I was just like, I'm trying to get out of here. I don't even want to look at food right now, so that I didn't even get very much, but I ended up getting out of there at a decent time. But that's the bartending life, so I signed up for it.
Nice Easter rake.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes, and it'll be going right back into these underdog drafts that we'll be talking about this year as well. So
my guy,
here we go. But yes, today, given the fact that the NFL draft is right around the corner, I figured we would jump into a 2-round Dynasty Superflex rookie mock draft today. I've been cranking out these, and I was excited to do one for SGPN here, because I wish we could have Dave on here as well, but we have some of the best minds in Dynasty Fantasy Football on this network. So, and Justin is one of those guys. So, we actually didn't even get a chance to talk about it yet, but who would you like to tell the crowd why you're taking Bijan Robinson at the first pick, or should I tell the crowd why we're taking Bijan Robinson with the first pick?
You can go first overall.
All right, here we go.
It's a consensus pick.
It's a consensus pick. Yes, we'll go back and forth with this draft, but that's what I've been saying now for a while now. For if this, I don't like to just totally gloss over Bijan Robinson though. For those who maybe are still just getting into this information, like I said, I know Dynasty managers might have been checked out by now, but Bijan Robinson, he is, if I was ranking the prospects in the last 10 years, Bijan Robinson would be up there, right behind probably Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley. He is a fabulous pass catcher, terrific athlete. He tested above the 80th percentile in all of his athletic drills at the NFL Combine. Like I said, there's just not enough to be said about the guy. If I was going to critique maybe one small thing, his vision at the line of scrimmage, sometimes it prevents him from, like I said, sometimes he doesn't make that quick read, and sometimes it gets him caught in the backfield, but he's a terrific at breaking tackles. His 104 forced tackles missed last season were the most ever since the stat has been recorded. So I'm very, in any draft, there's no reason to think about it, even in a super flex draft. What do you think about that pick, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute slam dunk. I'm going to find it very difficult to see many rosters being in this situation where they just absolutely don't need a running back and they just have the biggest need for quarterback. I feel like the quarterback position is getting a little bit deeper at this time. And I just feel like it's going to be unlikely that if you have the 101, that you're going to need to prioritize any of these quarterbacks over Bijan. He is the best asset, the best talent in this draft. Looking at a dynasty standpoint, he may be, as long as he, finishes the year healthy, that's always the case. He may just be the most, or the highest return on investment regardless. It's tough to see, any of these other first round picks, get the potential workload that he, can carry. He is a 300 touch, running back, in my opinion, someone that can tote the rock, and those guys are far and few between right now. So hopefully he gets a good landing spot on a team that will use him exactly like that. Anything less is going to be, not using him to his fullest extent.
Is he your dynasty RB1 already?
It's tough not to, it's really tough because when you're looking at the board, a lot of these guys that get the ball as much as we expect that he will, they're just getting up there in age. Eckler and CMC, we love those guys. They're absolutely fantastic. But from a long-term perspective, Bijan just has many, many less miles, on the treads. So I think that just gives him that little bit of extra upside. If he goes to a landing spot where we see a crowded backfield and you don't get those vibes, maybe he gets bumped down to 2 or 3. But again, that youth priority at the running back position, that really, pulls his value up.
I was just doing a podcast a couple days ago, and I was just telling him he could go and play with Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor. He would still be my RB1 because I love Bijan Robinson so much. I would expect obviously him to land with one of those teams, but just any player,
right.
Team that's willing to spend a first round pick on Bijan Robinson is going to use him heavily, I think. With that, where are you going with the second pick in the Superflex rookie draft?
I'm going CJ Stroud, still the best throw ability, best overall quarterback for me in this draft. Based on his size, based on his athletic ability, he's someone that can move outside the pocket. I think he needs to be a little bit more aggressive with that. Coming up to the pros, I think that's going to be a big opportunity for him, to really move his stock up a little bit and just be a better player. I'm expecting the Panthers to take him at number 1. I really like the setup right now, the way things are looking. This is a team that wants to run the ball. They have Miles Sanders. They're bringing back Chuba Hubbard. For a rookie QB, I don't hate getting an experienced receiver in Adam Thielen. They only brought in DJ Chark on a 1-year deal, but it seems like this team's going to have good bones for him at least. At least that's the sentiment that I'm getting. And because, I do feel very confident that he's going to go 101 to them, I feel like, having that extra bit of knowledge or that comfortability, like, oh yeah, he's going to go to an offense that seems like they're building a balanced attack. I don't feel as bad as if he would somehow land in Houston. I like the Carolina Panthers, the way that they're built today, a lot more than say the Texans. Maybe a wash between the Colts, but I just don't see him falling that far.
If the conversation is between Houston and Carolina, I absolutely agree with you. I do like Carolina considerably better. The offensive line is in good shape. The receiving weapons, not great, but there is something there with DJ Chark and Adam Thielen, Terrace Marshall.
I think they definitely draft a receiver. We'll definitely get to that later here, but there's some round 2 guys in our draft that I think would be good fits in Carolina at the receiver position. Again, Adam Thielen, older receiver, DJ Chark only being brought in on a 1-year deal. So I think that receiver is going to be a big opportunity and target for them in this draft.
Yes, absolutely. But that's only in comparison to Houston. It's a pretty bad wide receiving core. So I wouldn't expect.
It's god awful.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect CJ Stroud to be, a fantasy relevant quarterback, particularly in year 1 in Superflex. I do think he can be a back end starter. It's hard to rank him much lower than that. He does have some mobility to him, although it doesn't project to be a big part of his game at the next level. I do agree with that pick. That would have been my pick there. Prototypical size. It's just the safe guy. And that seems to be where the draft is going. With the next pick, this is where it gets, big for me. The conversation is usually between, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson gets thrown in there a little bit too. But in a super flex draft, I am going to go with Bryce Young here. I was just saying we should have had him on today. Dynasty George checks in. Dave Heilman, I appreciate you checking this out, my man.
I'm always a sucker for Dumb and Dumber quotes. Sorry. I'm always a sucker.
Oh man, I was just watching that movie actually yesterday. It's timeless. I love it.
Don't watch the sequel. Don't waste your time.
I didn't watch the sequel. I never could. I watched the Zoolander. Okay, it can't be worse. I'm sorry, we're getting distracted here, but I can't be worse than the Zoolander sequel.
I watched 5 minutes of both of those movies and turned them off because it's just like, all right, I know where this is going, and it's going to be a waste of time.
I never turn off a movie, but the Zoolander movie, the sequel was so stupid. I was just like, I cannot watch this. I cannot spend another hour of my life trying to watch this movie. So yeah, that was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Maybe somebody could tell me that it turned around the last hour and it was a funny movie. But with that, before we digress here, I'm going to tell you why Bryce Young, actually Anthony Richardson is my first quarterback in one quarterback formats, but here I am taking Bryce Young just because he is the best passer in this draft. He has the arm strength. He's very accurate. I believe, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe he is second in passing yards and second in passing touchdowns in Alabama history. And that is off of basically 2 seasons of production. The obvious concerns about Bryce Young are his size. Just looking at players that are 5, he is the shortest quarterback by a hair. That's it would in the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, just slightly shorter than Kyler Murray, just by a tad, and he is significantly lighter than Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, the two players most compared to his height. So he would by far be the smallest quarterback. The closest comparison I was, when I was looking back and trying to look historically, was Doug Flutie was the closest player I could find, and Doug Flutie was not exactly a fantasy relevant quarterback, although he did have a successful career. Bryce Young, like I said, he can make every throw. The concern will be, will he be able to hold up for some of those hits? We just haven't seen, particularly for a player who's not an athlete like Kyler Murray, it is a little bit concerning, although especially, in Houston, where he might be trying to buy some time, not great weapons there. So, there's just a lot of concerns for this profile for me, but not enough for me to let him fall past this third pick. What do you think?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I've been on record that I'm going to take a position player over him most likely, just because I don't love the lack of size. I feel like, especially if he goes to Houston, he's not going to be set up for success right away. I do expect Houston to draft a receiver probably at pick 12. Take your pick of who you think would best pair and bring up Bryce Young's stock, whether it's JSN, Quentin Johnston. If they're really big on Jordan Addison, I would hope that's not the case. I think they need someone who's still a little bit more physical when you're looking at that group of Nico Collins, John Mechie. They brought in Noah Brown. Like, it's super underwhelming. They do have Dalton Schultz there, who I think who could definitely help him. I mean, it's our assumption that he is going to go to Houston, right? Like, you don't think that he's going to fall past pick 2?
There's a chance, but it's zero chance he would fall past Indianapolis. I do think it's probably Houston. I think it's more likely that he goes number 1 to Carolina than he falling to Houston, to Indianapolis.
Okay. So let's say he is going to Houston. Then which one of those receivers do you think would bring him up a level? Because I don't feel like they're going to draft a running back at pick 12. They brought in Devin Singletary. I would assume that they may still attack the running back position, but later in the draft. I got to feel like they're going after a receiver when you look at this group here. Like, which one of these guys do you think could potentially help them out the most? I mean, I feel like it's JSN in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, JSN's the best wide receiver, I think, especially with that recent Pro Day 40. I think he's, solidified himself, not any big athletic concern. So, yeah, JSN's the obvious pick, but I would be excited about Quentin Johnston as well, only for the fact that, he has that wide receiver 1 frame, has that ability to, although it might be an outlier outcome, and he doesn't have the safe floor some guys do. I do think he has it in him to be in a wide receiver 1 and a good one at the next level.
I think that's also a good pick. I mean, realistically, I don't know if they could really go wrong with that pick between JSN and Quentin Johnston, but Quentin Johnston would be interesting in that offense as a red zone threat because, yeah, they brought in Dalton Schultz, but he is not a big body, go up and get it type of tight end. He's more of like a tight end, wide receiver hybrid type of tight end. He's not going to, bully anybody on the offensive line trying to set the edge. So I don't really look at anyone in that offense and go like, oh yeah, that's the guy you have to throw to, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 10, inside the red zone. So I think that could make an interesting scenario as well. But like I said, like Bryce Young just doesn't excite me as much as other quarterbacks in this draft do. And it's just because he is smaller. He's going to have to take his licks. When you look at Kyler Murray and the amount of sacks that he took his first year in the league, there's going to be that period where he's going to need to ingratiate himself into the upgraded speed of upfront defenders and the reachability and athletic ability of defensive backs. Like, I just see a lot of his throws not translating well to the NFL. He has arm strength. He has accuracy. I just feel like his system in college was just set up so well for him that he is going to, go through those growing pains early on. Personally, I think he's going to be used more as a runner. I think that's his biggest athletic trait. Get him outside the pocket and throwing the ball. I think that's going to be his biggest opportunity for success.
Yeah, like I said, it will be dangerous just with the fact, his size and everything. But before we jump into the 4th pick, in which I just want to give one more quick shout out to Shady Rays. Kick off the new year with new gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. Here in Colorado, we love Shady Rays. Shady Rays is also an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. Like I said, I've been wearing them all off season in the summer here. I do love their sunglasses as well. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back even after you purchase and break it immediately. That's great for a guy like me. Exclusively for our listeners as well, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the new year. Go to shadyrays.com and use code SGPN for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. Justin, where are you headed with this number 4th pick in the draft? Our 4th pick.
Feels chalky, but going with Anthony Richardson. I mean, the dude just keeps showing off his athletic abilities, doing backflips after he's throwing deep balls. He has the size profile. I think the landing spot feels like the Colts, but I also believe that someone may move up to number 3. I think someone may be aggressive and try to move up to number 3 and swap with the Cardinals. Teams potentially like the Buccaneers, maybe the Patriots, the Titans. There's been some talk about, some teams looking to, shop for that pick. And I feel like that may be the case. I definitely like the concept for the Titans and the Buccaneers the most for fantasy wise. But even if he lands with the Colts, I think it could be a very good situation. You like that run first type of option there with Jonathan Taylor backed up with, some good young receivers, and Pittman and Alec Pierce. And they've got, big old Jelani Woods, be a nice big target down there in the red zone. And I feel like they could set up a nice run first offense with him. It doesn't feel like they're shopping anymore right now in free agency. The sentiments that they're going to draft a QB that they're going to be ready to start. So I'm going to ride with Anthony Richardson with the Colts.
And that would have been my pick as well. Anthony Richardson, he's my first quarterback I would take in one quarterback formats. The risk, the sub 55 completion percentage, the fact that he hasn't been productive these last, he wasn't productive until his junior season. That just has me a little bit nervous about his prospect profile. So I would totally agree with Anthony Richardson right there. At the 4th spot, I think, it's hard to let a player who could end up being has QB1 overall potential. It's hard to let him slide much further on in drafts. And with that, Justin, we ready to move on to the 5th pick?
Yeah, go ahead. As long as my audio is good, I know my visuals right now.
That's what I was testing out. I saw your camera there. I was wondering if you were still with us there.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm like moving in slow motion, but it seems like the audio is up to keep. So
the audio.
Yeah, if you're following on the YouTube channel, it might be some Twilight Zone, vibes going on here. But rest assured, we'll try to get through here. If you're listening on Spotify, by all means, keep enjoying the comedy hour.
Yes, it looks if you are listening on like Spotify or something like that, I think you might be back with us. It looks like Justin's talking and I'm talking at the same time, but we can't hear him. But it looks like he's back with us now. So we will jump into the 5th pick, and I've been jumping back and forth with this. So just to recap real quick, we did take Bijan Robinson number 1, CJ Stroud with the 2nd pick. I have we took Anthony Richardson with the 4th pick, and Bryce Young with the 3rd pick. So 3 quarterbacks, 1 running back to lead off the draft. And before I jump into the 5th pick here, I do want to give one more shout out to our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. They are one of our main producers of the show, and they've been fantastic partners for well over a year now. Underdog Fantasy is a great place to get down on fantasy and player props all year long. Underdog Fantasy has your favorite NBA, NHL, and MLB daily games. Plus, they're already doing best ball drafts for the 2023 NFL season. Head over to underdogfantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. And of course, we thank you for watching. And if you are watching on YouTube or anything, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you could leave us a review, a rating, it would mean so much to us. We love the listeners, and that obviously helps us keep bringing you this wonderful content. So with that, I will jump into the 5th pick here. Like I said, before I interrupt myself, I've been jumping back and forth a little bit. I've been
really
to take a running
right
back
here.
Yeah, I've been jumping around. I wanted to take a running back in this spot, but I can't talk myself out of Jackson Smith-Njigba, really clearing up any concerns that he had with that athletic testing, 4.52 or 4.53 40-yard dash. That's right in the acceptable range of outcomes. He had the fastest shuttle time of any player since 2013. Fantastic 3-cone drill. He's a very solid athlete. So all that was kind of just blown out of proportion a little bit. He may lack top line speed, but he is a very skilled wide receiver. And, although he gets flack for not being able to maybe be an outside wide receiver, I think he certainly could develop in that area. The slot obviously is where he projects to maybe have most of his time, but I wouldn't rule out him being a productive outside receiver as well at times. The only really concern is I believe he has 23 combined targets between his freshman and junior season on the outside of a fantastic sophomore season where he outproduced Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So, obviously we are banking off of one season, but that was one of the best wide receiver seasons we've seen in recent memory. So is that where you would have gone with this pick?
Yeah, it's between him and Will Levis just based on need of your roster. If you need a quarterback, you're more desperate. I think he could fit that mold. He's my next pick after JSN. But if I'm taking JSN over Bryce Young, then it's very easy for me to take him over Will Levis and another group of players after. So, yeah, slam dunk here for me.
It's just I think he's going to be a fantastic wide receiver. And I wish he didn't even run that 40-yard dash at that pro day, because I would have loved to see him maybe slide even a pick or two further. Yeah, exactly. People drafting Quentin Johnson or maybe Jahmyr Gibbs first, which may be one of the picks that you're going with next. Although actually it sounds like you're actually going quarterback. Where would you go?
just getting him off the board here, so going with Will Levis. But before I do move on, Spotify listeners, turn up the volume. All right, crank the volume here. We need you to participate with these DGen points. That last pick number 5, is that where we're at? Pick number 5, that is the answer to this episode's DGen question. What player was selected at pick 5? The answer, Jackson Smith-Njigba.
And yes, for those of you that don't know, you can win fantastic merchandise and a bunch of other cool prizes with these DGen points that you answer. And yeah, so it is a great way to get some SGPN merchandise, and maybe we'll be doing some other fun stuff as well. So with that, where are you going with the 6th pick in this draft? Oh yeah, you already said Will Levis, but break it down.
Going with Will Levis, just getting the quarterbacks off the board here. It's a Superflex format, so again, it's suspected that you're going to have that need, probably at this point. And again, it's kind of a breaking point after these first 4 picks. I feel like it's going to be very subjective to your league and your format and your scoring, how things are going to fall in line. I like Will Levis a lot. Love the deep ball ability. Love the big arm. For me, I think honestly, like right now, I feel comfortable over some of these other guys in the league here. I wanted to ask you, just kind of go through like a quick, A or B game. Would you go Will Levis or Jordan Love in a startup?
Ooh, that's tough. I would go with Will Levis.
Okay. Mac Jones or Will Levis?
Will Levis.
Desmond Ridder or Will Levis?
Will Levis.
Kyle Trask or Will Levis?
Will Levis.
Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis?
Will Levis.
See where I'm going here, right? Like you're checking a lot of boxes. So if he's already ahead of these guys in your pecking order, I think it's very easy to digest him as, a top 5 or top 6 pick, in your draft. I mean, obviously we want a landing spot, right? I think that there are some interesting scenarios that could play out. I mentioned a team potentially coming up and stealing that 3rd pick from the Cardinals or whatever, doing a friendly swap. They don't have to be stealing. Everybody wants to win, right? And you could potentially see Will Levis fall to the Colts. I honestly think that may be the best scenario, because when you start looking at these other teams, that are going to need a quarterback, I think you are kind of banking on him to fall, hopefully to the Buccaneers, because once you get to the middle or back end of the draft, those opportunities become less available, right? So, we're already expecting, the Panthers to load up. I don't think that we expect the Falcons to draft a quarterback. It feels like they're very comfortable with Desmond Ridder. So, I feel like a lot of these situations have these kind of just placeholder QBs. And yeah, I agree with you on all of those A or B picks. I would go Will Levis over all of those guys. So feel really good about him. I think early on he could be a great game manager and maybe, develop into something a little bit bigger given the right opportunity and landing spot.
Yeah, Will Levis, he's not the same player, but just has that high range of outcomes that Zach Wilson did a couple of years ago. He can make every single throw, but also, some of the mechanics, you do see some issues there. He has kind of a weird throwing motion, but he was very accurate at the NFL Combine. He was fantastic as a junior, struggled with injuries last year, wasn't quite the same player. So we saw that draft capital fall, or, kind of more questions about his game arise, I should say. it'll be about draft capital for me. If he gets in the top 10 picks, the Raiders, the Falcons, those are exciting potential options. However, if he slides into the teens, somewhere like the Commanders, that would be a little bit more concerning. I like actually the Washington Commanders have a really good wide receiver core. It's just, maybe that changes with Eric Bieniemy. It's just, you just feel you hear the Washington Commanders, you're just like, just like you're used to them stagnant offense. No, you ready you like the Washington Commanders?
I mean, I like the bones. I think they've got a great, a great template in place, if you will. I love McLaurin and Dotson. I love those dual running backs. I think that Antonio Gibson is kind of slept on, a little bit underrated. And Brian Robinson, and we've discussed this before, he's a great value right now in best ball. As far as like fantasy football player market goes, he's someone that I feel is at a discount or closer to a penny stock than he is a blue chip right now. So I like where they're looking right now.
Yeah, and like I said, that's just me attaching like the feelings I've had for Washington Commanders.
Sure.
The offense being kind of a mess these last couple of seasons, run first. So that would certainly change. That would certainly change maybe with an exciting quarterback like Will Levis potentially. But with the 7th pick in this draft, I am going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. I believe this has been the consensus RB2. Most fantasy analysts have him as the RB2. It's a conversation between him and Charbonnet, though. I've gone a little bit back and forth, but I'm just going with the upside here. 4.36 40-yard dash, very good pass catcher, 44 catches, 444 receiving yards last year. Took a heavier rushing workload in his junior season at Alabama than he had at Georgia Tech the previous 2 seasons as well. So that was very good to see. Size is the big concern here for Jahmyr Gibbs. You just haven't seen rushing opportunities. Just opportunity in general is the biggest thing for a running back's fantasy value. And Jahmyr Gibbs, just with his 199 pounds, we haven't seen too many, consistent players, that get volume game in and game out at that size. So that's just the one concern. But we're talking about an electric player. Where does he fall in your rankings?
I have him closer to, we're at pick 7. I have him coming off mine at 9. So pretty close. I've just a couple of receivers ahead of him. So love him a lot. Love the receivability out of the backfield. A couple of nice landing spots would be, the Eagles, the Chiefs. I think those would be great fits. There's been talks about him potentially going to the Cowboys, but don't rule out a unique situation, maybe like the Detroit Lions that could develop. I'm getting the vibe that they're going to move on from DeAndre Swift at the draft. I feel like he could be a live, trade block, type of player to get moved early on in maybe the back end of the first round. And I feel like, that could be an interesting spot for him to land, potentially towards the back end of the first. I believe they're picking twice in that first round, the Lions. And we have another interesting take for them as well for another position player in our mock here. But, looking at Gibbs, I think, of course, just like anybody else, the landing spot's going to matter. But he has just got a great framework with his speed, his catchability. Again, the size isn't there, but I mean, at the running back position, you can just be used, in so many different ways, catching the ball, running the ball, outside zone type of stuff. So I feel like he's going to be a very good asset in the NFL. As long as he keeps up the legs, right? He's going to go as far as his speed will carry him.
Yeah, he is terrific in open space. He's one of the more fun players in the draft. Jahmyr Gibbs has that PPR potential. Doesn't have the muscles Austin Eckler does, but some similarities can be found past that. Where are we going? So just to recap, where we've gone the last few picks, it was Jahmyr Gibbs with the 7th pick. Will Levis was taken at number 6, and at 5, I've already lost. JSN.
5 was JSN. I've got it written down. Anytime you want it pulled up.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And with that, where are we going with the next pick in this draft?
Going back to receiver with Quentin Johnston, I feel like he could have a really solid bevy of landing spots I'm going to feel good about. I could see him going to wide receiver U with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I could see him going to the Patriots and being a target hog. The Packers, another kind of one of those teams like Houston, where I feel like he would flourish in the red zone just because you look around and you read the room and you're just like, who else is going to go up and catch one in the corner of the end zone or, go body up a DB, down the middle of the field. So I feel like he could have some, really fruitful returns in the middle of the first round here. Of course, again, landing spot, we're going to keep banging that drum. It's going to matter a lot. If he goes to somewhere like the Chargers, I'm probably going to have to knock him down a few picks, probably to closer of the end of this first round, beginning of the second, just because you see the mouse that are going to be need to be fed ahead of him. Even if Austin Eckler were to walk or get traded, you would still have two really good receivers ahead of him. But I feel like he's going to go to one of these more thirsty, more needy teams that need a receiver.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I could see him being the first wide receiver selected in the draft with a lot of that, with just those strong physical traits. It's not like many of the receivers in this draft. A lot of these other receivers are a little bit smaller, don't have that size that he has. Are you concerned at all? I'm not. I wasn't. It didn't freak me out at all. But he ran like a 4.53 pro day 40. People were expecting more. They're talking about him falling in rankings as a result. Did that concern you at all?
No, I don't think that he's going to be asked to be a speed guy on any team that he goes to. I think that if there's anything that you can get better at quickly in the NFL, coming over from college to the pros, is getting faster and getting stronger. Because you know what it takes? Repetition. And that's just the easiest thing to do is run routes, lift weights, get stronger, get bigger, get faster. I think that that's something that he can, elevate prior to week one, right? Getting into OTAs, getting into training camp, getting in with these teams that are going to be able to, get him in that NFL regiment early and often. I have no concern about his, any lack of or any perceived lack of speed. I've seen the tape and some of his comps have come as high as, Julio Jones. So I feel very good about him. Again, if he goes to a crowded receiver room, it's not going to be fun, the first year. But I think that, given his frame, given his athletic ability, he's going to be someone that's used, with priority for years to come here.
Yeah, he just needs to play up to that size that we haven't seen. Sometimes he's not the best at contested catches, but he certainly has the frame to grow into that role. It's not like he can't do it. He'll get some NFL coaching, certainly could grow. So with the 9th pick here, I am going to hit the running back pool again. I'm going to go with Zach Charbonnet. I think this is a pretty safe pick here. I've been debating putting him even at my RB2. He has that size. He stands 6 feet tall. He's well under the 200 pounds. He had 37 receptions for 321 yards last year. I believe 1,680 all-purpose yards. Yeah, he's just fantastic. He's a good pass blocker. He does everything pretty well. I think he's come in and be a starter right away, given his experience level. Like you said, he has, the skill set and the frame to be a 3-down running back at the NFL level. The only thing he may lack is that top line speed, but he tested pretty well at the NFL Combine, proving he's at least an average athlete to maybe even above average athlete. So I really like Zach Charbonnet here, and I'm going to take him, before I would go any deeper at wide receiver. Just if it's very saturated a wide receiver, there might be safer wide receiver prospects here, but and that's how it is generally in Dynasty. However, I'm going to go try to get a difference maker running back here. Any thoughts on that pick?
No argument whatsoever. I mean, I think that you're, tomatoes here between some of these guys, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Zach Charbonnet, whatever you need. If you need a running back, go get Charbonnet. If you need a receiver, go get one of these guys. I don't really think that there's a big difference between the value that you're going to get back. Of course, receiver, we expect them to last a little bit longer. But when you're looking at Zay Flowers and Addison, you're looking at guys that are a little bit smaller. And I feel like because they lack some of that physical traits that we were just talking about with Quentin Johnston, they feel closer, to kind of being in that same pool with running back. So I don't mind that pick whatsoever. Powerful runner, can break tackles, can block. I think that his skill set's going to translate very well to the NFL. Had landing spots like the Bengals or the Eagles. Great offenses that are going to be in the red zone quite a bit. I think he would be a solid fantasy asset on either of those rosters. I don't like the Chiefs. I've seen some folks scheming him up to Kansas City. I just feel like him and Pacheco can do a lot of the same things, and Pacheco has still a little bit more pass catching upside. But that would also be a pretty interesting tandem. Never count out, the Chiefs to reload at running back at the end of the first, right? Go ahead.
I hope the Chiefs wouldn't go with him at the end of the first round, and maybe a second round pick, if anything. But there is some interesting, I see him more as a second round pick, but I certainly see him within that second round, or the first 10 picks of the third round for sure. So, I think he will secure draft capital, but there's a lot of running backs this year. So, teams might be comfortable waiting on running back, knowing that there's so many prospects available, probably maybe in the third or fourth round too. So we will see what happens. With that, who are you selecting with the 10th pick in this Superflex mock draft?
I'm going to go with Jordan Addison just based off of, I think overall upside. I think I still like Zay Flowers a lot. So again, if someone has the opinion that he's going to be a better prospect per landing spot, hey, take that shot. I have them right next to each other here in my mock. So either way, I'm good with it. But I think that Addison will get a good landing spot. Some places I like are potentially the Chargers or the Vikings, and it being used in maybe more of like a lower ADOT type of responsibility and priority. He's a fantastic route runner. He's got great speed. I think there are just some physical limitations. He's got a smaller catch radius. He's not going to go up and make big plays down the sidelines or anything like that. I think that he could be used as a very good slot weapon. Again, landing spot's going to matter here for both of these guys. I like Zay Flowers a lot, but I'm going with Addison at pick 10.
I cannot disagree with that. Addison was one of the best wide receivers, but just the best wide receivers on the field in college, and in this draft. Very productive. He had over 20% target share each of his first 2 seasons, had over 1,600 yards as a sophomore, struggled with injuries a little bit last year. The criticism is he had a first percentile size adjusted athletic score. We talked about not being concerned about Quentin Johnston's 40 time. I believe he tested 4.53 or 4.55. But Jordan Addison tested, a 4.49, which is less than 20th of a second faster than Quentin Johnston. Yet he is just 5'9" and 170 something pounds. So he is a very light prospect. Just not a strong frame. Everyone compares him to Devontae Smith, but not everybody can be Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is so good. So there is a little bit of concern here, but that probably would have been my pick as actually, I think, just leading into it here, I'll go ahead and tell you where I'm going at 11. I just, the running backs will be the theme for me, I think, this year, especially outside of the first few picks, just because the wide receiver market's so saturated at this point. It's hard to rank the wide receivers higher than like wide receiver 45, honestly, in Dynasty rankings, because there's so many good wide receivers. So I'm going to be reaching for some running backs here, even though some wide receiver prospects might be a little bit safer. I'm going to go somewhere kind of a little bit out of left field. I think, if with solid draft capital, I think Israel Abanikanda couldn't be that crazy of a pick here at number 11. He had 1,577 scrimmage yards last year. Ideal size of combination and speed. At the pro day, it was originally suggested he ran it between 4.27 and 4.32. We knew that was likely inflated just a bit. I think there's recent reports that's a little bit closer to 4.40 or so, but that, that's pretty much what we expected with the player given his size. If he was that size at 4.3, I think, he'd be, right up there with, right behind Bijan Robinson. You know what I mean? He would be a strong second round pick. So I really like him here. There could be, maybe a safer prospect to take here, like I said, but it's the high range of outcomes for Abanikanda is, you could see him. He has that athleticism, has that size to be a top 12 running back, top 15 running back in fantasy. So I'm going to go that there and hope that maybe he develops a little bit as a receiver as well. He is one of the youngest running backs in this class and has all the tools to do so.
What do you like for a landing spot for him? Because I've been hearing his name being sung a little bit more often recently.
It's more about the draft capital, I think, more than Lance. But of course, I would love the Falcons would be an interesting one, even though they have Tyler Algier. The Commanders would be an interesting one, maybe if they, depending on what they decide to do with some of their players. So, those are just some of the ones that I've looked at. Of course, maybe the Bengals even as well. We're looking for a player to maybe take over for Joe Mixon. He's having, it was just a release that he is being recharged apparently with some of those things. So maybe the Cincinnati Bengals decide to move on from him.
Where do you think he falls draft wise? Do you think he could fall to the Browns in round 3?
That would be really interesting. I think obviously that wouldn't be great for his 2023 fantasy value, but maybe 2024. No? I think that's possible. I think it's a possibility.
They're pretty depleted right now. It's Nick Chubb and then like Jerome Ford. Like they don't have much.
I mean, obviously, it's all relative. So, if could he be a top 30, top 24 running back in a high range with Nick Chubb, sharing a backfield with Nick Chubb? It's possible, sure.
Right.
But he has the potential to even be more than that, if he had a little bit more of an open run. Like the Atlanta Falcons would be a good one for me. I don't think Tyler Algier has a particularly impressive profile. So I think he could come in and be, show a little bit more than Tyler Algier did last year as well.
Yeah, I had him backed up to about pick 16, so not quite as high. There's just a few other guys that I just like more ahead of him. Simply as put as it is. hasn't really wowed me just yet. I don't know, but I've been hearing a lot of people say a lot of positive things about Abaconda, so may need to start paying a little bit more attention.
Check him out. Like I said, one of my recent risers, but who were one of those players you would have taken over him at 12?
At 12, let's get the tight end in there. Let's get old Michael Mayer in there. I actually have a name ahead of him, but he originally went as pick 12, so I'll just keep him there, and we'll knock Zay Flowers down a tidbit here. Michael Mayer toted as one of the best tight ends in the class. Kincaid could give him a run for his money, but he's more of an older prospect and a little bit more undersized. I think that Michael Mayer is going to develop into the better long-term tight end asset. Kincaid I kind of feels closer to Dalton Schultz, to be honest. I just mentioned him a little bit earlier, being a little bit more undersized, having a little bit more speed, but kind of feels more of a wide receiver tight end hybrid type of player. Like Michael Mayer a lot. People are talking about him going to potentially the Bengals. Who is the offense that I really liked him going to? Bengals, I think, is just like the home run pick after they moved on from Hayden Hurst. I don't think a lot of people have the high amount of trust for Irv Smith to stay healthy. And of course, that offense is going to move the ball a ton, but just a big body target, not a ton of speed there, but he's got sure hands and he can block very well. There's a lot of his skills that are going to keep him on the field more often than not. So I like him to bring home a fruitful return, even in his rookie season as a tight end, which, that's a gamble. That is not a stat or prediction that is historically backed by, consistency.
Yeah, it's always risky for me taking a tight end this early. So I would have had a few other guys that I would have taken here ahead of, but I can't fault you too much for that. Michael Mayer is, an old school tight end, should get plenty of playing time, very safe, he's a good blocker. So, he should certainly have a role, just question his upside a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that's why I would have had a couple other guys I would have gone with here. Would you mind, since you've been writing it down, would you mind recapping round one for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So first overall, we went Bijan Robinson, followed up at pick 2, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young at number 3, Anthony Richardson at number 4, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba at number 5, and Will Levis to end the first half of the first round. Followed by Levis was Jahmyr Gibbs at pick 7, Quentin Johnston at pick 8, Zach Charbonnet at pick 9, Jordan Addison at pick 10, and Israel Abaconda at 11, closing down the first round with Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer.
All right. I love it. Thank you, sir. So with that, start leading off the second round. I'm going to go with Zay Flowers, a wide receiver we mentioned earlier out of Boston College.
Love it.
Despite poor quarterback play, Zay Flowers had an extremely productive college career. He is a smaller prospect, similar to many in this class, but does have a little bit of a stronger frame than like maybe a Jordan Addison, let's say. He's a good athlete, solid route runner. So, he's a playmaker. I compared him a little bit to like Wan'Dale Robinson with his playmaking ability a little bit. So, it's just, the risk. My only criticism, of Zay Flowers, I think he could be a really good wide receiver. I would love for him to, you talked about the Chargers being a bad landing spot, but I really like it for somebody like Zay Flowers. Maybe it's not the 2023 breakout fantasy spot, but for 2024, It could be wheels up with some departure at wide receiver. It sounded like you agreed, though. Why do you like Zay Flowers?
I mean, because he is more physical. Like, he's someone that I trust can more likely go across the middle with success early in his career, right? Where I don't feel like that's going to be the case for Addison. When I look at Flowers, I actually see more of a deep threat. So where I would like him to go to the Vikings, I don't necessarily like him to go to the Chargers, because I don't think that he would be used as, a lower ADOT guy. Last year, he ranked 23rd in deep yards and 30th in deep receptions. So I feel like his game can be, downfield, low ADOT. I feel like he brings a very all-encompassing skill set here. But he is similar in size, like I said, to like a Jordan Addison, but is a little bit stronger. At least that's what it feels. I don't know about the sure-handedness as much as Addison and the total route running package, but I feel like as a prospect overall, he's right in here after Addison, after Quentin Johnston. Like, I feel he's firmly ahead of the rest of the group, because he kind of brings a little bit of what you're looking for from like a JSN and like a Jordan Addison. I feel like those would be like a kind of a good mold for him. You get some of the athletic ability from JSN, you get some of like the size and speediness and quickness of a Jordan Addison. So I think he does have a little bit of a complete package to him.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he's the clear pick for me here. He was in a tier by himself for me with the remaining picks in this draft. So I would be thrilled to get him with the 13th pick in a super flex.
Yeah, I have him going in round 1. So like we kind of moved him back for the sake of the conversation. Just throwing Michael.
Oh yeah, right. I think yes. I think you said that. So you normally maybe would have taken Zay Flowers. So I agree with that. But that was an interesting selection though. Who are you going with the second pick in the second round?
Let me see who I have left on my board. I believe next up is back and forth. I haven't taken a running back in a while, so we'll go Devin Achine. Super fast, great ball carrier, has great vision. Landing spot's gonna be a big deal. Yeah, he's got a lot of speed, but who's going to use it most often? Not someone that also is very physical. Doesn't fight for a lot of extra yards, not someone I'm going to trust for pass blocking. So I feel like he does have a limited upside, but in the right offense, if you get on, let's say like the Cowboys, they're going to be passing the ball a lot. I think that would be a great fit. The Lions are kind of another sneaky team, another sneaky situation that I think could be buyers at the running back position. I think he would fit very well as a 1-2 punch with him and David Montgomery if they were to move on from DeAndre Swift. Yeah, I mean, really, the only criticism is, he's just small and can get bullied around a little bit. But I think that his offensive skill sets, kind of outweigh the bad here.
Yeah, agreed. That would have been my pick as well. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the 2023 class. Former track star. I think, like you said, he is a little bit smaller, dynamic playmaker. I think he is surprisingly productive in between the tackles as well. He's a physical runner for his size. Obviously, that won't translate in the NFL. He's not going to be a goal line running back or anything like that, but he is capable of being physical, even despite that 188-pound frame. I like that pick here. He's kind of like a James Cook in the sense that it's going to have to excel in a 10 to 15 touch per game role, but I do think it's there. It's not that he's this running back. He's a pass catching running back, and he can't run in between the tackles. Just like James Cook, he can do it. It's just the fact that how often are we going to see it is the question. Ben, I have Zay firmly above Quinn Johnson in my rankings, and I go back and forth between him and Addison and Jay. I think that's the case. I think people are really coming on to Zay Flowers. It'll ultimately come down to how the NFL views him, where that draft capital ends up landing. So we will see. And thank you, Ben. Great stream, by the way. I appreciate that compliment. Thank you very much, sir. So with that, with a third pick in the second round here, that is really tough. I am going to go with Kendre Miller, though.
Okay.
He is one of the best pure rushers in this draft class, 1,399 rushing yards as a junior, just 20 years old. I just think there's a ton of talent here. My biggest concern is that he didn't do any testing due to a knee injury and that he's been recovering from. So that could tank his draft stock. But I really like the physical profile as well. He has that ability to be a have that 3-down workload. Not a terrific pass blocker, though, and we'll need to work on his pass catching ability. But similar to Abanaconda, has those physical tools, has that athletic ability, and he's one of the younger running backs in this class who could develop as a pass catcher. So I think, just another player with a lot of high upside, although, the floor is kind of lower than some other players on this list, and it will be dependent. We don't know how – he's one of those guys that we're at the stage where we don't know how the NFL feels about these players. So, he could jump into my top 5 running backs, or he could fall out of my top 10 depending on landing spot, or, kind of depending on draft capital, I should say.
That's exactly where I was going with this. I have him my notes on him, I have him at the back end of this second round because, again, I feel like the landing spot for him is super important. I feel like he could go somewhere where he's used as a project and not getting a lot of priority in year one. But I like the bones, good structure. One of my notes on him, he's not a long runner, can make defenders miss up front, but maybe not downfield. He's going to be able to get you those 4 to 5 yards, but I wouldn't expect him to be a big gainer until, like you had mentioned, he does develop as a pass catcher. His size could potentially keep him on the field as a pass blocker, but I just don't know right now, without knowing his landing spot, how really good to feel about him. So I have him backed up to about pick 20. I like the idea of him, but someone I absolutely need a clearer picture on, before I prioritize him in my draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. And he's a big risk here. Abanikanda and Miller got kind of my guys at the running back position. So
Mhm.
you might be able to even get them later than this, but this is where I rank them in my rankings that I've been putting out. So I understand that, but I'm going with guys with a little bit more size, handle a little bit more opportunity. But I do understand the upside of players like Devon A. Chain who have that, who are very exciting. You know what I mean? So I like that pick a lot too. So with that, where are you going to go with the 16th pick? I believe we're at
16th pick. I think I am probably running back a receiver here. I'm going to go with Josh Downs. I love the footwork, great route runner, fantastic separator. This is someone that I think is a bring back for the Carolina Panthers with CJ Stroud. I think he goes to the Panthers. You're going to see people start comparing him to the next DJ Moore. Has that size, has that kind of burst off of the line, great footwork, like I said, great separator in the second level. And again, this is a Panthers team that I feel could prioritize him. Any of these guys that we really mentioned here, I could see Zay Flowers falling there. We had already talked about them needing to kind of have that priority for a receiver early on. You're not going to have a long-term asset in Thielen or Chark, most likely. So I got Josh Downs going to the Panthers. Smaller catch radius, but again, I kind of feel like that fits into that a young DJ Moore type of sentiment. That's the type of vibe that I'm getting from him. Yeah, that's all I have. I haven't met pick 14. He's coming off at 16, so getting a little value here.
I like Downs, one of the best, probably the best, at least definitely for his size, the best contested catcher in this class. Not as strong physically, not the physical profile of DJ Moore, but he certainly plays bigger than his size, and so I like Josh Downs a lot. I think he could be a very good playmaker, very productive career at North Carolina. I like that pick a lot. With the 17th pick, I'm just going to keep tapping running back. I'm going to go Roschon Johnson here, jack of all trades. Like I said, he would be going, I think, a little bit higher, even if he hadn't been playing behind Bijan Robinson. He's a terrific, he does everything very well. Like I said, he's good at breaking tackles, has good vision, has enough athletic ability to show some bursts at the line of scrimmage. One cut, he's downfield. 4.59 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine is nothing to write home about, but it's not terrible either. He is 6 foot, has a very strong 220-pound per frame, so I like that a lot. And he just does a lot of things that are going to get him on the field at the next level. He's a good pass blocker. He does a lot of things right. He's good in the locker room. Like I said, he doesn't stand out in any particular area. He's not, he's not this flashy guy. He's not going to make a bunch of he's not going to make a bunch of home run plays, but I like Roschon Johnson, has that size, unlike a lot of the players in this class, to handle that workload too. So I like him a lot. And some, I work with people, like Cody Carpentier over at Player Profiler, have him as the RB3 in the class. So he certainly has his people that love him as well.
No, I'm a big Roschon Johnson fan. I just see his ADP taking him to the depths of the third round for most mocks that I'm doing. So love the talent. I just don't know if I love the ADP game here. I think it's going to be very subjective with your league mates, right? If you're playing with what you feel are more sharp players, I think Roschon Johnson may be the pick here. But if you're feeling like, maybe your league mates might be a little bit newer to Dynasty, or maybe you think you're the smart guy in the room. I feel like maybe you let Roschon go down the board a little bit. Of course, it's going to depend on where you're sitting in the draft. If you had, say like, a pick in the back end of the second and an early third first, I don't hate doing this at all. You know what I mean? I wouldn't hate moving him up whatsoever, because you're going to get someone that's probably just as even with his draft stock, again in that next round. But I feel like I might be going out on a little bit of a limb here, going with him this early. And again, that's just because in my mocks, I've just seen him going to the third round. But I will say he was someone that I wrote down here. Like if you would ask me like, who's on the bubble of like getting into the second round, he's the name at the very top of the list. He's the very first one listed.
Yeah. And, I think it'll be the draft cap, like we keep saying, we could keep saying it, but it's, obviously draft capital dependent.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets day 2 here, I think this is a bargain though, where, maybe he doesn't get that, he could slide into round 4, but it'll be a big question, but I think it'll be borderline. I see him probably being selected round 3, maybe potentially within the first few selections of round 4. Where are you going with the 18th pick in this draft?
Sorry, I got to come back around to my notes. I'm going to go back to another tight end in Dalton Kincaid. I actually had him higher. I think I had him at about 14, not that far off of Michael Mayer, and I think people may be more timid about drafting him because of his age, and I get that. Is he 25? Or was that Herndon Hooker? I think Herndon Hooker's 25.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of Kincaid's age. He's an older prospect regardless, but he had the third most highest deep catches this past year, third most missed tackles, which I was very impressed with. That was an interesting stat for me. Like I'd already mentioned earlier, he's got great speed. He's got a good release, good movement. I just don't see him being a bully downfield. He has the speed to hit the stream. I don't know if he necessarily has the size and athletic ability to take the hits after hits after hits, but I love, the bones here. I think he's got great ability. And if he can get a little bit bigger, get that NFL size, and maybe, he could even get faster than what he is now. Like I mentioned earlier, it's one of the easier skills to obtain. Work, repetition, get faster, lift weights. That's like one of the easiest things to do, as an NFL athlete. You're just going to see these guys grow in mass and, elevate their game to a faster and quicker speed to, match up with the, NFL talent. Landing spot, always going to be important. Like we mentioned here, I don't really have any of notable interest for Dalton Kincaid. Do you have anyone in particular?
Cowboys, maybe at the end of the first round, would be very, very interesting, I think. Chargers as well.
From Schultz to Kincaid.
Yeah.
One Dalton to the next.
I like that landing spot a lot, actually. Kincaid would have been my first tight end, actually, in fantasy football drafts. I think he has just a little bit more upside than Michael Mayer, better route runner. He's going to play more of that slot tight end, kind of that, I forget the word for it. They have a word for this kind of tight end, the smaller tight end kind of
someone
frame,
who doesn't block.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. A tight end that can't block. You know what I mean? So that's what his role is, and we've seen a lot of these 40-pound tight ends fail at the next level. It's kind of the Evan Ingram mold for a tight end, and we've seen a lot of these guys fail. But like I said, I'm reaching for the upside at the tight end position, so I like that pick here. Would you mind recapping the first half of the second round for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kick off the second round, we had Zay Flowers, and at pick 14, Devin Akine. Pick 15, Keandre Miller. Pick 16, Josh Downs. Pick 17 was Roshan Johnson, and then Dalton Kincaid at pick 18. We've got 6 picks left.
All right, I will kick off the back end of this second round, and I'm going to go with a player that has been discussed as the wide receiver 1 on certain NFL scouts board. That is Jalen Hyatt. He is a premier athlete, was able to take advantage of his teammate missing time last year, Cedric Tillman. And yeah, he had a terrific season, 1,267 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns, 21.6% target share, 4.40 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. Some were even disappointed by that. Some thought, he was going to run those 4.2s and really, really, make his mark. Kind of that Tyquan Thornton-esque. So 97th percentile burst score too. So there's a lot to like here. He's kind of a one-trick pony, though, kind of just more of a downfield threat, which may be better for the maybe better for the NFL field than it is for the fantasy football. So, that would be my concern about him is, even if he receives round 1 draft capital, he could be a little bit boom or bust just because that's his profile. He's more of a speed guy. Where would have Jalen Hyatt fallen if you were drafting it, if you were ranking it?
He came off at pick 16 and we're in pick 19. So another value pick here. Absolutely love the skill set, elite speed, sure-handed, more of a straight line runner. I don't like his route running at the second level, but again, that's something I feel is fixable. And, he has the ability to develop at the second level here. Packers, Chiefs, I like his landing spots. I think the Chiefs would be an excellent fit. Again, they're kind of looking for that next level guy after Tyreek Hill. I think that he kind of fits that mold. Like I said, he is more of a straight line runner, but in an Andy Reid type of offense, they can use that skill base very well.
Yeah, and
a lot of teams.
Yeah, I just think it's a safe pick here. And I've been going running back heavy, so that would have been a tier break for wide receivers for me a little bit, but.
Yep.
So that where are you going with the 18th pick in this draft? Yes, I was trying to find my place here.
No, we're up. I got up to pick 20, bud.
Oh, what? Are we sure?
Yeah, Jalen Hyatt.
Oh yeah. I was thinking I was doing my math. See that's why I wasn't an engineer.
Don't tell the guy with the notepad what round it is or what pick it is, bud. All right.
Hey, I declared I wanted to be an astronomy major at CU. And the guy I did my math entry-level math test, and the guy told me that wasn't going to happen. You know,
That
so,
guy's a dickhead. Emerson, you can be whatever you want to be, man. It's 2023.
Hey, you know what?
You can identify as whatever you want. You be an astrophysicist if that's what you want to be.
Even with, yes, you're right. I can identify as one, but that they typically like you to be better at math than I am. So yes,
If you
right.
can't be an astrophysicist, like in like the astrophysicist community, you can just be one on YouTube. You know, like
I love that.
play a doctor, but on YouTube.
The glasses that, I've recently got the glasses, so they make me look a little bit smarter. So that is great. You're right. We are at pick 20. I was thinking on like a 20 pick scale here. So I was like, we're 4 picks from the end. So that means that. So yes, you're right.
And hey man, I'm right there with you. These glasses are fake. These aren't even real.
They block the UVs though. I know.
No. There's nothing in here, pal.
There's just nothing in there. What? You need some UV. You need some UV protectors on those things.
No, man. This is straight Leon from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh my God.
Everybody just knows you're smarter when you rock these. They take you a little bit more seriously. They're a little bit more politer.
I just realized when I put on glasses, so somebody was just like, "Can you not read that?" And I was like looking at the bar, like 3 feet away. They were just like, "No, I can't." They were like, "I think you need glasses, man." And so I realized I put on glasses. I was like, "Wow, I haven't been able to see for years." So all right, before we digress,
things make sense now.
Things make sense now.
Ben Haskell in the chat. Emerson is an astronaut to me because you're out of this world, Emerson.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ben.
Like that.
We love you too. Thank you very much. I love your content as well. I always see you on Twitter. So thanks for stopping in tonight. We'll jump into the 20th pick though here. I'm going to go with Tank Bigsby. Big guy.
You get 2 picks? You get back-to-back picks?
Wait a minute. See now
you got Jalen Hyatt.
God damn it. All right. Pick 20. You. All right, here we go.
I'm taking Herndon Hooker. I'm going to take another quarterback in this Superflex draft. All right. I know he's a little bit older. But man, Buddy has got a deep ball, at least when he stays in the pocket, because when he runs out of the pocket, and by the way, pretty solid runner, he doesn't throw the ball though. When he runs out of the pocket, he is running, folks. You know that he is about to run for his life. Great size. Don't love that he's coming off a torn ACL. But if he's drafted with priority, we have to make that same type of adjustment in our drafts. Like if he goes somewhere and it's a wide open battle for a starting position, i.e. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, like, come on, that's a wide open lane, to potentially start week 1. We obviously need to move him up the boards. Now, if he goes somewhere like, I don't know, Arizona or the Commanders, then I'm not going to like him as much. Like, well, I guess even the Commanders, that's kind of wide open, right? That's probably another good example of wide open. If he was competing with like Mac Jones or Ryan Tannehill, I don't feel like that's as safe, but still a situation to buy into at a later ADP than this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot here. I was kind of forgetting about him a little bit. That's a good pick. He's just an older prospect, which is concerning. We haven't seen a lot of these guys with this kind of quarterback profile succeed a lot in the past. So, I just have my dad, doesn't have supreme upside, more of a pick in super flex leagues, not someone I'm considering really one quarterback formats, doesn't have top 5 upside or top 12 upside. But does have, could he be on the absolute high end of a high end of outcomes would be for Derek Carr. You know what I mean? That's within the range. That could be possible. So I like his upside there. He's just, he's very accurate downfield. He's made some big plays at Tennessee. Coming off the ACL as an older prospect, though, I feel like if he didn't tear the ACL, he would be considered a top 20 pick. So I don't mind that at all. Banking on him, we might not see, it'll be tough. The only thing tough is he's already an older prospect, and we might not see him this season considering he's recovering from an ACL. So that'll be tough. So it'll be really dependent on what teams are expecting from him in 2023 in week 1. But all right, so now it is me. It is me now. So you can't get me distracted. Otherwise, I'll just take all the picks in the draft. So at pick 21, I will now go with Tank Bigsby.
There you go.
Guy that, kind of was always thought to be one of the first running backs selected in this draft and the 2023 draft, and just never took that next step forward after a big rookie season. So now he finds himself in the back end of the second. But yes, had big, powerful runner, hard to bring down. He did have receiving production at Auburn, but not a particularly great route runner. More was just catching screens at Auburn, and is a bad pass blocker. So maybe doesn't have 3 down upside, but could certainly command a 1 and 2 down role, have flex upside in fantasy football leagues. So Tank Bigsby, I'm just going to keep lining up the running backs here who could end up, with day 2, who could be sneaky if they get into day 2 draft capital, although I do expect him to probably get drafted in round 4 or 5. But like I said, I'm just going to keep going running backs here.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I have him at the back end of round 2. I had him at pick 20, and he just came off at pick 21. So, pretty even with what we're looking at here. Love the prospect. Very shifty, tough between the tackles. Browns early round 3 was another one that I was looking at here. When I mentioned the Browns earlier in the 3rd, I think that's going to be their first pick. And again, the room just looks pretty barren at running back. They feel very thirsty for the position. They just went out, got Elijah Moore, in this offseason. Feel like they're pretty set at receiver. If they target a receiver, I feel like it would be more of the later rounds. I think they even may have given up a draft pick for Elijah Moore. They give up a 4th round for him?
Third, I think.
Or maybe they swapped? Because
Yeah,
I think they have a 3rd round pick from the Jets.
No, wait a minute. No, yeah, they sent a 2nd round pick, I think.
Okay, so there you go. That's how they're evaluating Elijah Moore in their offense, right? Like he's going to have priority. They just gave up that type of pick for him. You already have DPJ, Amari Cooper there. I think Tank could fit in well there. I'm not saying he gives me, Nick Chubb vibes, but he's certainly closer to Nick Chubb than he is, say Kareem Hunt.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. So Tank Bigsby. I don't know if I don't know if he's a compliment to Nick Chubb. So I don't know if I love that landing spot, but somebody who could take over in 2024 for Nick Chubb. So
I had who was the other landing spot? I had the Saints or the Cowboys, but the Cowboys feel like a very bland, kind of chalky RB landing spot right now.
Yeah, same with the Bengals, I would say. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
So with pick 22, hopefully I have that right. Hopefully I'm finally back on track here. Pick 22. Yep. Where are you going?
I'm going with Marvin Mims, premier prospect, 19.5 average yards per catch, career in college. That's crazy. Guy can line up anywhere on the field. He's got great speed. He's been schemed open, throughout his college career. But hey, this is what NFL coordinators and coaches are. That's their jobs, right? That's their goal, is to draw you up open. So landing spot going to be a big deal here. I had him coming off at 23, so 22 feels very good. Not really breaking any ADP rules or pulling him up or like pulling him down the board by any means. Has a good overall frame. I think he's a little bit closer to maybe like a Zay Flowers, as far as like physicality goes. Whereas we've seen some of these guys, they feel like they have kind of like lighter builds. So I feel like he kind of fits into that more of like hybrid physical speed category.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's a very good pick here. Actually, that was he's been sliding in drafts, and that's somebody who I've been more eyeing with a mid-2nd round pick more and more. So that's very good value. I didn't have it right in front of me. I usually have all my prospect right in front of me, but I wrote it on a different article actually. So he had like a 98th percentile breakout age though. He just was fantastic very early on in his Oklahoma career. Does everything well, plays inside, plays outside. Like I said, there's just not many holes in his game, and he's looking like he could likely to be a 2nd round pick in the NFL draft. So with that kind of strong draft capital, this is a very good selection. I'm going to finish up how I started. I'm going to go with yet another running back. I'm going to go with Zach Evans. I'm going to, this running back, this is the class to take advantage of the deep running back landscape. Just keep taking your lottery ticket running backs in the 2nd and 3rd round here. Zach Evans. I think a little bit too much got made from him transferring from TCU and Kendre Miller. It did appear that he took on that lead role in 2021 before suffering an injury. He subsequently transferred to Ole Miss, where he is now playing behind Kayshawn Judkins last year, he's fantastic. Or Kinshawn, one of those two.
Kinshawn.
Whatever it is, he's that guy. We'll be talking about him next year, but I'm not a Debbie guy, so I don't learn about these guys too far in advance. But Zach Evans still had 1,000 all-purpose yards and 12 touchdowns. He's shifty. So, didn't test great at the NFL Combine, but shows more speed than that on the game film. Like I said, just another guy who has all the tools to be, a 2-3 down, at least a 2 down back at the NFL. Needs to work on his run blocking or not pass blocking. Pass blocking to get kind of more of a 3rd down. Isn't particularly a dead pass catcher or anything like that either. Mm-hmm. But just another player who has RB2 potential, just needs that landing spot draft capital.
Yeah. So I have him, Sean Tucker, and Chase Brown, like neck. Right here at this last pick.
Right. Yeah.
So really any of those guys for these last 2 picks, because Zach Evans at 23, and then I'm following up with either Chase Brown or Sean Tucker here. So really no argument. Evans has a great burst. He's got great balance. He is shifty, but he also has some issues fumbling the ball. I think he needs to clean that up a little bit. That'll be a big opportunity for him. Getting into a camp, keeping the ball in his hands. I think if coaches see that early and often, I feel like that'll be a good thing for him to just get himself on the field, kind of build up the confidence of the coaching staff. Those are my only concerns. But again, I feel like it's a very close cut here. Like I said, between him and Sean Tucker or Chase Brown, and landing spots will just be super, super indicative for how this, second round would close for us.
Well, I'm going to make you pick now. So who's it going to be, Chase Brown or Sean Tucker with this last pick?
I guess Sean Tucker. I like the size. I like the speed. And I just got done talking about, having good hands, and Chase Brown has had some fumbling issues. So I think that'll be my tiebreaker. Again, that's something that I feel these guys they get to the next level. They kind of, upgrade themselves mentally, we'll say, right? Like they're, kind of ascending themselves to this next level of competition. Again, for Brown, that'll be a huge opportunity, but that'll be the tiebreaker for me. I'll take Sean Tucker. Like the shiftiness, like the size, like the strength, like the speed. And again, I think you can get those things from Chase Brown. I just feel like what I've seen, him keeping the ball in his hands a little bit more often gives me more trust. Gives me just a hair more.
Yep, Sean Tucker, it'll be interesting to see what the NFL thinks. He hasn't been able to test due to an undisclosed injury. So we'll find out what that is. We'll find out at the end of how worried the NFL is about that. So, yes, that's another guy. That's a guy who could move into the top 5, my top 5 running backs, if he was to surprise us with day 2 draft capital. I love what I saw, just very concerned about no athletic testing. So we will see. My Bulldogs are just looking at me like right now, like, dude, like, are you going to finish?
Are you going to feed me?
Are you? So I guess that is with that, I guess we will head out here. Justin, what's going on at SGPN this week? What should the listeners be looking out for?
Oh, I'm just working this week. I'm doing a ton of stuff. Tomorrow I'll be on Front Yard Fantasy during their daytime show. Tomorrow night, Andrew Robb and I will be doing a Best Ball Villains podcast. Last week we did heroes. This week we're doing villains. Last week it was players you absolutely have to trust and draft. This week it's guys you don't want to trust. They're absolute villains and you don't want to draft. Our do not draft list. Thursday we have a live draft with Pete Overzet that was rescheduled because we went to go draft and the big board had closed the day before. That was kind of a bummer. But Pete's been a fantastic sport. Rescheduled with us coming back on this Thursday, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Last week of fantasy hockey content. This Wednesday, me and my brother are going to do a best puck draft for the NHL playoffs. Closing down my championship week. Got a nice healthy lead. So yeah, man, a lot of stuff going on over here. A lot of fingers in all pies. A lot of work to do. Still early.
Fantastic. We'll be back next Sunday with me and probably Justin at this point. I keep alluding, like I feel bad. He's always doing other things. I'm just like, hey man, like I couldn't find a guest again. You want to come on for the show? I haven't even tried, honestly, lately.
Brother. That's why I'm here.
Like the last 3 weeks, I haven't even tried to look for another guest. I was like, Justin, he's going to be there for me. We'll do this thing. So
back pocket.
I love it. Happy to have you on again, my man. So we will see the SGPN family later on this weekend. This is the only network that I know that has probably a fantasy football podcast coming out every single day. So keep an eye out for that.
At this rate.
Yeah, two a day, honestly, at this rate. So yes, keep an eye out for that as we have you covered for all rookie draft content ahead of the NFL draft this month. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great night.